Hi there. ISO can be so important to your photography. If you understand ISO, you can become so much more creative with your photography. And that's what we're going to chat about today, ISO. Many people have the view or misunderstanding that ISO is complicated, just something I don't understand and I don't really want to know about it. That's wrong. It's not complicated. It's straightforward, and it can really make your photography just so much better. So welcome to the Delight of Photography. This is an area where we discuss all things photography, and it's quite fun. So let's have a think about what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about ISO explained, and it's a crucial setting. And if you understand ISO, you can have extra fun with your photography. ISO is part of the so-called exposure triangle, as you can see on your screen. And that triangle is ISO, shutter speed, and aperture. And the three of them interact to give your camera the correct exposure to give you the kind of image that you want. And as we'll chat about in due course and in further broadcasts as well, if you want to be creative, you want to be able to change one of those legs, but understand what it's actually doing. So we're going to talk about ISO. What really is ISO? If it talks about ISO, what is it? Light is measured in ISO, and that indicates the sensitivity of the sensor to light. ISO comes from the International Standards Organization. That's just something that they developed. So that tells you how sensitive your sensor in the camera is to light. And 100 really is considered to be about normal. Just technically, the sensitivity of the sensor does not actually change. Changing the ISO just increases the amplification of the electronic signal generated by your sensor. Don't worry about that. Just remember, as you change the ISO, it changes the sensitivity of your sensor, because that's really the practical effect. If we go back to days of film, you get a fast film, which would be say 400 ISO, and it would have big lumps of light-sensitive chemical on it. So when that was exposed, the big lumps reacted fast to light. So it was a so-called fast film. But because the lumps were big, it meant that you could have a so-called grainy effect. And then you would have a slow film, say 50 ISO. And this had lots of tiny little piles of light-sensitive chemicals on it. And because they were small, they reacted slowly to light. But it gave you a very fine grain, which was wonderful for detailed images. But the problem was, if you wanted to go from one to the other, you had to go into a darkroom to actually physically change the film. With modern day digital cameras, it's fantastic. We can do the same, but without doing anything, just with a twiddle of a knob, and you can vary it. And you can vary the ISO, because if you double the ISO rating, you will double the exposure effect, which is really helpful in poor light situations. So let's have a closer look. If you take this picture, now if I gradually increase the ISO rating, just watch carefully, you will see what happens as I increase the ISO rating. The picture is getting bigger and brighter. But also if you look at it carefully, you'll see it's starting to develop what we term digital noise, which in many ways is equivalent to the grain that you used to get on fast films. Digital noise. And you need to bear in mind too that you can change the ISO ratings when you're taking images, and if you're using a smartphone, it'll give you the facility to change the ISO as well, because ISO gives you, it's like the key to more creativity. And with smartphones and with your standard camera, if you don't have the instruction manual, which by the way I do suggest you get, but it'll tell you everything. But if you want to know how to change the ISO, Google is so helpful. You just Google, I have this model camera, how do I change the ISO? And some kind person will tell you exactly how to do it. Use Google, it's very effective. So the trade-off is noise. So you may get this grainy effect when you do it as you get to much higher ISOs, like 6,000, 7,000. So therefore, it's not ideal to use ISO because of the potential. But if you're in a particularly dark situation, you use ISO because that's what it is. This is grain. You can see the speckles all over this image of the ship, and that's without grain. Just to give you an idea of what grain is. And here's a second picture. This is grainy with speckles all over it, and that's without the speckles. We're not talking how you get rid of speckles, we just want to show you the contrast so you can understand what we're talking about when we discuss grain. But sometimes you need grain because sometimes it can be creative. This is this particular picture I took in Brighton Beach early one morning. And these 4 guys came down. They'd obviously been to a party and they were all drunk. And they all jumped into the water to swim. So I took this picture. It's grainy, it's movement, but I really, really enjoy it. I also did phone the police to say there's these guys in the water who may die from hypothermia, but they didn't, and all was well. But the key point is always take the picture. Even if you think it's going to be moving or messy or grainy, take it. It may just turn out to be really good. And because ISO is important, you have a picture like this, and which is okay, but if you increase the ISO, you can at least get something out of it, and it turns into quite an attractive image by playing with the ISO and understanding the fact that you may get grain. But you can get pictures like this, which would not be possible without ISO. So let's take some real situations. Bright sunshine, clear sky, 100 ISO is perfect. Everything works, it's a nice picture, and it's really good. Then the second example is it's getting darker now. So what do? You raise the ISO to maybe 300 or 400 or even 500, and you make it look not quite so gloomy, and you make it look much brighter. And you can decide the level of brightness that you would like by just varying the amount of ISO. Or else you get a picture where it's really pretty dark. So here you have to get quite a high ISO. It might be as much as 6,200, 6,400. But you want to take the picture because you're never coming back. So even though the light is not good, you use increased ISO to make sure that you get the picture. And even if it does get a bit grainy, you understand that and you're happy to accept that penalty. When you get your camera, it will be set auto ISO. What auto ISO does, it works with shutter speed and aperture to give you what the camera thinks should be the ideal exposure. So it changes automatically to give you the right exposure, which is fantastic when you're just taking pictures and you're not trying to be creative or doing anything. But when you want to try and be creative and adjust the lighting, auto ISO will not let you do that. And creatively, you should control your ISO to try and get the effects that you would like if you're being creative. Because you don't want it set on auto with the green. You would like it set on program. Program gives you the facility to change things and to tell your camera what to do in terms of exposure. Because whatever you do, if it's set on auto ISO, whatever you do, it will always fight with you and try and change your creativity and give you what the camera thinks should be the right exposure, which may well not be the exposure that you want. So talk about ISO settings, and it's really good to understand what your camera does, Because the majority of people, in my experience, and I've taught a lot of photographers, don't understand what ISO is doing. They know it makes the sensor more sensitive and you can use lower light, but what kind of noise, they don't know what their camera is going to do. So what you should do is set up your camera, you go to part of your house, go into a darker place or a medium place or a brighter place, and take a series of pictures at 100, 200, 300, 4, etc., ISO. And then you download those onto your computer, and then you have a look at them critically, and you'll get to know with your camera where the noise really starts to come in. And then you'll know that I can shoot up to, say, 800 ISO with no noise effect with my camera. So it gives you wonderful creative freedom. So think about ISO. Think about how you want to make use of ISO. Because you want to be able to take pictures like this, and this will involve using extra ISO. So remember, ISO is a wonderful addition to your toolbox, as it were, as a photographer. And really, if you understand what ISO is doing, you're giving yourself a gift, the gift of additional creativity. You can do more things with your photography. And we're going to be talking about the rest of the exposure triangle and broadcasts that are coming up. We're going to talk about more detail about shutter speed and all, and how you do that and what you do with it. But bear in mind, please click on subscribe, bottom right hand corner. That'll help you get advised and see when I broadcast the next image. Because if you have a look, subscribe, you get a playlist there, all the different images, all the different videos on photography that have been uploaded. Have a look at them. It's a fascinating one and very interesting. Click on subscribe, that'll give you the chance to do that. But thank you very much for taking the time to join me today, and enjoy your photography. It's a wonderful, wonderful pastime. But the more you know about it, the more fun you can have. Take care. Cheers. ISO explained, a crucial setting. Enjoy your ISO.